Thank you, Vision. I think I am audible, right? Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir,
you
you
are
are
audible.
audible.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Uh, uh, Let me share you the video of extrusion process we conduct before cable is actually sent to the site. How the extrusion process is being carried out. Uh, we present. This is the timescape of extrusion process. This is how the bare strand is actually, uh, put on the coil form. This coil is around 3 ton weight and around 3 kilometer length of cable. These are the grains, plastic grains, hooper uh, for sheathing. This is how the sheathing is actually formed. This is a cable with a grease layer on it. This is a spool from wherein bare strand is getting in the process. You can see the sheathing, how the sheathing is being. Uh, this is how the printing is done on the cable. You can see some tractors and some mechanical components uh, for the process. This is the another spooler wherein treated cable is again getting coiled. This is how the packaging is done. And again the weight is being ensured. This is how the cables are there. From bare strand we are making this unbonded cables uh, encapsulation, or you can say extrusion at our place. So coming back to the PT system, this would be uh, we covered the basic of the post tensioning system, especially the unbonded PT system. Now we'll move forward towards the other aspects. There is some of the case studies and uh, some of the things, modifications that is being we came across in our projects after construction. So this is the basic. Just to refresh, we have the design stress like this. We have pre-compression. We have load balancing. Ultimately, we can have better control over the stresses. These are the components. These are some of the key elements of the PT system. Now coming back to the serviceability aspect. This serviceability aspect is uh, important while designing. Uh, in general sense, the present scenario is such that many of or most of the design designers are concerned about the ultimate limit state of collapse. Uh, the serviceability aspects are not attended to much extent it should be actually, in even in RCC. So we we start our design with the serviceability first. first and foremost parameter to watch out in PT at our place is the serviceability aspect. We have two stages in design. First stage is to make sure about the serviceability. Serviceability, there are two aspects measure. One is the deflection and other is the stresses. So, in case of deflection, we need to make sure about its long-term aspects, and in long-term, actually, we need to make sure about the creep and shrinkage and its long-term effects. Remember, these are the serviceability criteria we need to consider. One of them is the deformation, or to be precise, in our case, it is deflection, because we are working with the horizontal members, and mostly these horizontal members are prone to have the deflection. Second one is the cracking. Third, durability, impermeability, vibration, acoustic insulation, thermal insulation, etc. So there are various kind of serviceability aspects. Out of that, in our building sector, generally, the first is the deflection, cracking, and durability, and impermeability. These are the aspects. Mainly, say for example, durability, impermeability. These are the aspects wherein concrete also plays a role. The material itself, concrete, also plays a role. Like it should be uh, well impermeable. The soundness should be good, so that it can impart more against the uh, atmospheric actions. Vibration is related to, again, it is a natural natural inherent property of a particular form. So, slab, it a particular condition, it has a particular kind of natural period or natural frequency. Beam can have a particular natural frequency, column can have a particular natural frequency when it is isolated. When it is all combined together, the composite vibration of the floor is also something else, and that need to be considered mainly when that parameter has its effect on the serviceability criteria of the building. Say, for example, in case of a laboratory where precise measurements are of immense importance, there, if effect of vibration shall be considered, so that the vibration doesn't actually disturb the measurement part of that particular uh, maybe laboratory or factory. Acoustic insulation is also important, because noise pollution should not be there, and it's, it is also equally important in building sector. Thermal insulation also important in building sector. So mainly, as far as design is concerned, actually deformation, deflection, and cracking are the major parameters. Of course, durability is there. So these three are the major parameters that can be considered in the design. So deflection, as we know, we can have a better control over the deflection if we use PT. Cracking, we can have a better control over the cracking if we can control over the stresses, internal stresses, to be more precise, tensile stresses. So if we can reduce the tensile stresses, the cracking will get reduced. And once the cracking is getting reduced, durability aspects can be enhanced. Uh, this is as far as design is possible. There are durability aspects related to material, related to concrete also. So it is a combined process actually. So out of that, there is a contribution from design in durability by controlling the stresses. Serviceability aspects are expected to remain effective throughout the life of the structure. Here, throughout the life means the service life of the structure or operating life of the structure. So generally, from the day when the structure is commenced for the serviceability or service under service condition, the serviceability aspects plays a role till its last day of the serviceability or serviceable life of the structure. Generally, in early days, there are no issues related with deflection, because generally the L by D ratio is such that the instantaneous deflection is all taken care, or you can say elastic deformations are taken care as far as gravity loadings are concerned. But in many structures, when it is actually observed after few years, there are chances that they have excessive deformation or deflection, which was not there in initial stage. So this can be because of the long-term deflection, and that long-term deflection includes the creep. The material creeps actually in the passage of time when it is subjected to a sustained load. So as you know, the gravity loads, the first and foremost, sorry, gravity load is the self weight of the structure itself. So it is bound to be there. So that is one. So that is there as a sustained load. Second one is say floor finish flooring, that is also there. Third one is a fixed furniture, or you can say fixed partitions and fixed whatever the loadings are there. Those are there once it is constructed. It is there for the service life. So those are known as sustained loads, and a part of live load is a sustained load. So generally in a design, we can consider maybe 25 to 30% of the total live load as a sustained load. So that 30% live load is also considered to be a sustained load, or it is to be considered, its effect of the creep is to be considered in the design. So out of all these three is self weight, dead load, and a permanent part of live load, or it's a sustained part of live load, that is 30 to 25%. So due to this sustained load, there is a further deflection due to the creep. So as you know, the concrete or any material gets creep when it is subjected to constant applied loading. So in the passage of time, it is actually a dynamic case, because it is with respect to time. So time related deformations are considered as a creep effect. So generally, if you see the refer the code, maybe IS 456 or 1343, they have given some creep coefficients, like uh, 1.6 is there, 2 is there. So this much creep is actually acting on the structure or on the member when it is subjected for the long-term loadings. So here actually serviceability aspects are also important and need to be considered while designing. Serviceability failures are not considered as a failure in general trend of understanding. We should not rely on the L by D ratio for the larger spans and heavier loadings. Actually, whatever the L by D ratios are given, in our code IS 456, the L by D ratio, that is span by depth ratio, is actually suggested to go with. That is up to 10 meter, but still, beyond 10 meter also, we like to go with the same span by D ratios, and that is not actually applicable. So that is one thing. Also, this span by D ratio is being worked out in the code with a certain amount of loading, that is you can say typical loading. Uh, so for that, that is okay. But when we have a non-typical loading case, like we have a heavier loading case, heavy loads are coming on that, then that L by D ratios are not applicable actually. But still, to start with, we always like to go with that L by D ratio to start the design. And then, as design is an iterative process. We do not get directly the depth, but we have to put the depth first or sizes first, and then we need to work out and we need to make sure that the section is working well or not. So it is an iterative process, and that is why your depth is required at the first stage to calculate the self weight as well as to calculate the section properties, everything. So that is why serviceability has to be actually given immense importance while design. And if we give that serviceability proper justification, we'll have a better structures, better durable structures, and long-term deflection can be actually taken care. So a design that adequately satisfies the safety requirement need not necessarily satisfy the serviceability requirements. This is also true. Many buildings, after long-term effects, they try to deform, and even the deflected shape is visible, but still uh, they are not collapsed, right? So collapse is different thing, and the safety is different thing, and serviceabilities are different things. Actually, our safety criteria and serviceability criteria are, you can say, contradictory. In serviceability, we like to have less deflection. We like to have a stiff system. We like to have less vibration. All these things. So it should be a well rigid system, which is actually expected for serviceability criteria. Whereas in case of safety requirements, we like that the structure or components should deform, should fail in ductile manner, so that deformation is good enough to so that it is noticeable. Whereas in serviceability, it should not be noticeable. In safety, it should be noticeable. So, uh, so this is how safety and serviceability are entirely different aspects of design, and one should give attention to those parameters. Now, let us come to the strength aspect. That is a safety aspect. uh, it is also known as limit state of collapse. Its occurrence is, you can say, very rare. It is at the time of the collapse, or you can say the last stage of the member at failure. Serviceability parameters exceeds its limiting range when strength aspect or limit state of collapse is reaching. So building may not remain serviceable when it reaches to the limit state of collapse. So a member is expected to show sufficient warning signs before the collapse. So it should show you can say noticeable deflections, deformations, cracks, everything, so that it gives sufficient warnings. Collapse should not be sudden and brittle in nature. So ultimately, the deformation should be more after crossing its you can say elastic limit up to the failure. So that ductile part should be more, and it is expected that building should fail in ductile manner, not in brittle manner. So these are two aspects we need to understand those both the aspects properly before we start the design. Now, in strength aspect, there are aspects related to the material as well. If you see this graph, this is nothing but the stress versus strain graph. of uh, metal. Uh, it starts with the mild steel. So mild steel has a range of around maybe 200 to 50, maybe it goes around up to 400 ultimate strength value. Then there are other grades, and then there is HYSD steel somewhere around 500, 450 to 500 HYSD is there, right? Then there are other steel grades, you can say high strength grades, and as you go up, there is a pre-stressing steel somewhere nearby the stress of 1800. This is the graph of pre-stressing steel. And further, there are materials, high strength materials that are being used for some uh, special kind of applications. So here, the peculiar or the part to watch out is that this is a strength part and this is the deformation part, or you can say you can say extension part in the tension test of the material. So mild steel has a limited strength or stress value, and then it fails. So this is the ultimate stress value. So it is strength, and then it fails. But the deformation is good in case of mild steel. Whereas in case of HYSD steel, deformation is little bit less as it compared to mild steel, but its strength is more. So as we go up for the variety of the materials, and here the pre-stressing steel is wherein the strength is good enough, but as you know the extension or the ductility is very less in compared to mild steel or HYSD steel. So actually we are getting something, but we are losing something in the material. So at one end, we are gaining on the strength part, but we are losing on the deformation or extension or ductility part in the material. So this is as far as the core material is concerned and core steel is concerned. So in HYSD steel is more ductile than the pre-stressing steel. So ultimately this is the trend. If strength increases, ductility decreases in the variety of the materials, and we need to be more cautious about the pre-stressing steel. It has a less ductility. We need to enhance this ductility by some other means and methodologies so that enough level of ductility is ensured in the structure, in the material, in the element. So here, this is a comparison of that was a comparison of material. Now here we are specifically comparing two materials. One is known as three materials. One is known as concrete, other is HYSD, and third one is the pre-stressing material. So here, as you know, the concrete has a very little strength as well as very little strain value or deformation value. Steel has a good amount of stress as well as strain or strength and deformation as far as concrete is concerned in comparison of concrete. But the pre-stressing steel has a less deformation but good amount of strength as far as HYSD steel is concerned. So if we just superimpose this while stressing, what happens is this is the usable stress strain response after bonding of tendon. This is a basic material characteristic properties of individual material. This is a composition of all three values. Means concrete is there, uh, steel is there, HYSD steel is there, and say for example in this case it is a bonded PT is there, right? So everything is bonded. Concrete is there, steel is bonded with concrete, as well as PT is also indirectly bonded with the concrete through grout and through the duct. So here say for example we have a proper bonding between all the materials, so it is acting compositely, and with that this is the behavior of graph superimposition of all the parameters, and this is how the stress strain response is actually uh, worked out for all three elements. So here you can see that after stressing from here to here is the part. This is a stressing. This portion is already stressed out. So this elongation is already gone. Also, this strength is also gone in the material, right? So only the remaining is this part and this part. So here, when this is related to when we have a proper bonding between all three elements, like all three materials, as well as it follows a strain compatibility uh, equations or formulations. So if we compare the strain compatibility between reinforcement and grouted PT or bonded PT at actual collapse, what is happening is, so there is a model like this where both the things are compared. So here this is the graph of pre-stress tendon. This is because of the stressing, it has a pre-compression of this much level, and then there is a effective after stressing. This is the effective part. This is how the rebar is actually. Rebar also getting the effects of stressing of this pre-compression, and then reinforcing bar, remaining behavior of the reinforcing bar. So here, what happens? This is an hypothesis. We need to make sure about this in practical use, how it is applicable. But this is an hypothesis wherein if it is thought that when what happens to these members at actual collapse. So when actual collapse happens, the elongation part has a limit for the pre-stressing tendon. It can elongate up to this level only. After that it will not elongate, right? So ductility part remains this much only for the bonded PT part, cable part. So as far as the ductility failure is there, at this point the pre-stressing still will fail, and now the all the entire force shall be resisted by the reinforcing bars only. As you know, the major part is taken care by the pre-stressing force. Now, there is a, you can say, inadequacy of the resisting of the force through this HYSD steel. So there could be a sudden change in the transfer of force and sudden drop of the capacity at this level of ductility when bonded PT cable is likely to fail. And then this may not be enough well enough, so this will also collapse suddenly. Uh, So this could be the model in case of a failure of a bonded PT system, wherein let's see what happens in case of unbonded PT system. So here the same graph is there, but that graph is here. This is the same graph. You can see. So it starts with that. It reaches the ultimate point, and then it is starting to yielding and then failing. So here, this is not a failure point in case of unbonded PT system, but it is an intermediate point from where a peculiar dramatic situation arises, and it starts gaining the load carrying capacity again. So this is generally the system we follow in case of bonded PT system up to here. But in case of unbonded PT system, it follows the same thing up to the failure point, and then again it again increases the load carrying capacity as well as it increases the ductility aspects also, and it fails here. So this is actually has been carried out in somewhere in 1989 in Sweden. in laboratory, and they have observed this, and they call it as a catenary reaction. So this additional capacity, load carrying capacity developed due to catenary reactions, which is 2 to more than 3 times the capacity at the time the slab fails as a flexure member. So what happens is, this is a flexure action from here to here. This is a flexure action. So flexure action actually results here, and from here a catenary action starts, and catenary action starts because of the cable is unbonded, and that is how it has a more capacity as well as more ductility before it fails. So this is a nice model, and we also like to work on that this hypothesis in some good establishments like IITs. We are into discussion, but because of this COVID situations, everything was at halt. We have been conducting certain experiments with IIT Chennai, Madras, and those are on halfway, and the COVID lockdown happened, and we are stuck with that actually. So let's hope that this situation will get resolved soon, and we are hopeful about that, and will continue on this kind of hypothesis so that we get proper results on this hypothesis. The ductility part is actually controlled by few parameters. One of them is the concrete. The other, as you know, the concrete is not that much ductile as the steel is. And if you see here, this is a graph of RCC member, wherein compressive stress and compressive strains are being plotted, and this is a graph. So this first graph is of unconfined concrete member. You can see that the red color graph is showing some kind of compressive stress, that is FSC, FMC, and it shows some kind of strain that is up to this limit. So it reaches ultimate at this point, and then it collapses at this or fails at this level of ductility, or you can say strain level. Wherein if the same concrete is confined with the steel, it can generate this particular behavior, right? So confinement is a prime requirement, or you can say a very important parameter to achieve the ductility in a concrete member. So this confinement can be achieved either through both the systems. One is known as longitudinal steel. We need to provide the longitudinal steel. Now here, only longitudinal steel will not be able to provide enough ductility. So to generate more ductility, we need to have a transverse steel. So transverse steel is nothing but the stirrups. So in presence of transverse steel, that is stirrups, and longitudinal steel, the confinement generated is very effective to generate a good ductility. So this is one way of increasing the ductility of post tension members. So you can have enough longitudinal steel, and you can have enough transverse steel to achieve the required amount of ductility. Actually, in design phase, actually the cables or PT cables are required just to take care of the serviceability aspects. So phase one design is to take care of the serviceability aspects, wherein the number of cables are being defined, the CGS, or you can say the profile is being defined, and the serviceability aspect is taken care, like stresses and deflection. Both the things are being taken care, and whatever the required amount of PT is required is to be put in. That is, uh, you can say, stage one in design. Now stage two starts after the stage one. So in stage two, whatever the amount of PT cable we put in for to take care of the serviceability aspects. Now those cables are there that will also be helpful in case of ultimate state or due state of collapse case also. So those cables are there, but again, to simplify it, those cables are kept just to ensure the serviceability, and in serviceability, the load case is one dead load, one self weight, one live load, like that. One time something, one time load. So there is no other factor than one in general. There are other factors like in initial case the factors are different, and in sustained load also the factors are different. But in totality, to simplify this, the factors for serviceability of total load case is 111. One time self weight, one time dead load, one time live load, and one time post tension. So with this combinations, or with this load combinations, whatever the amount of pre-stressing requirement is put in, now we need to ensure that it should work well for the 1.5 times loads also. 1.5 times dead load, 1.5 times self weight, 1.5 times live load also. So whatever the amount of PT is there is there. That is for one times loading. So again that 0.5 times is remaining. So for that, again the longest live the non-pre-stress steel is required, and also to to follow the minimum reinforcement criteria of the code. Again, the HYSD steel is required in addition to the PT steel. So that HYSD steel is always there to take care of that. So ultimate strength consideration is also that it also requires the HYSD steel apart from the PT steel, and this is how we can have a better confinement, and we can achieve this ductility by providing those kind of longitudinal and transverse or steels in the member. Even we can follow the ductile detailing 13920 criteria also in the design, and so that we can ensure that proper amount of ductility will be actually will be observed in the behavior. Now some slides regarding earthquake and unbonded PT system. To simplify, I'll go with the simple portal wherein a long span beam is there, and single span is there, and UDL is there. So the bending moment diagram due to gravity forces would be like this. There is a you can say hogging moment based on the fixity generated at this end. There will be again hogging moment at the other end, and there will be a sagging moment at a mid span of this beam. Now, say for example, we have an earthquake force from one of the sides. So the bending moment diagram generated due to this lateral force would be like this. There will be sagging moment and hogging moment like this. The profile of the bending moment diagram will be like this in case of earthquake. So in earthquake, actually the moments are being concentrated at the junctions of column and beam, and not generally at the mid span. So in mid span, generally, there are very less moments, but the moments are attractive at the uh, joints. Say reversal case, we have a action from the other direction also. So we'll have a it's envelope of the lateral forces and the generation of the bending moment due to the lateral forces like this. Now we are superimposing those things with the gravity forces, bending moment due to gravity forces plus bending moment due to lateral forces. So this is how everything is superimposed. And after superimposition, you can add on the negative part, you can add on the positive part, and then the negative part. So this would be the envelope. So this is the envelope, the upper envelope, and this would be the lower envelope of the bending moments of say all the cases, all the load cases, including the gravity forces and including the lateral forces. So here you can see that uh, uh, the gravity, the midspan portion is governed by the gravity forces only in general, right? Because this is the gravity and gravity uh, bending moment, and the envelope is also nearby that gravity bending moment. Whereas in case of the uh, column beam junction, the lateral is also there and gravity is also there. So you can see something like this, and there could be a reversal in this case. So we need to make sure about these forces and moments, and we need to provide the extra steel. I would like to discuss here at this point that pre-stressing cable should not be actually applied for the lateral forces actions, because these lateral forces, or you can say earthquake forces, are very transient in nature, and they are there for hardly a minute or two, not for a lifetime of the building. Whereas the pre-stressing force is there, it is a permanent force. So we cannot design, or we cannot resist the temporary transient forces by the permanent force, and this is not a good practice. So what we do is, generally the PT force is taken care, or the permanent forces, or the self weight, and all the permanent forces and the actions related to permanent forces will be taken care by the PT, and whatever the transient forces, like maybe a live load or maybe earthquake loads, so these are to be taken care by the passive reinforcement. So PT is an active reinforcement. It has a force. It has an active force. So it should be only to be taken care for permanent loads, and all the transient load, all the temporary loads shall be taken care by the passive loads, passive system, or you can say non-pressure system. There is a criteria in 1893 Part 1, our Indian Standard Code, wherein uh, moment of inertia and a fraction of moment of inertia is actually uh, there is a provision for that, that in RC and masonry structures, 70% of I gross, I is the moment of inertia, and I gross is the gross moment of inertia of a column, and 35% of I gross of beams shall be considered. So here, actually, for columns, they have approved that up to 70% of the I gross you can consider, but in case of beams, it is half of that, means 35% of I gross is to be considered in case of RC beams. So with this consideration, actually, the design, once the design is carried out with this consideration, you will get a good amount of reinforcement uh, required in case of such criteria. Whereas there is no criteria actually regarding PT structures in our earthquake codes, but we are hopeful that those criteria will be included in near future in the revisions, forthcoming revisions, as the the awareness is created regarding the PT structures. Uh, this will get fulfilled in our codes as well. We are hopeful about that. Whereas in the same similar kind of code in of ASC 4117, the recent code, there is a table 10.5 that is also discussing the same kind of aspects of effective stiffness values. So where they have put in, or they have included the pre-stressing effects and the beams non-pre-stress as well as pre-stress. So in our case, for the non-pre-stress beam, it is 0.35 of I gross, whereas in the ASC code, they have gone with the zero point 0.3 of I gross. right? As far as the flexural rigidity is considered, and the more you can say uh, part is here the observation is regarding beams pre-stress. They have gone with the full entire IGROS. So entire IGROS is actually can be considered as per the ASC 4117 if it is a pre-stress member, and enough amount of pre-stressing is there is done in the member. Also, they have marked regarding the columns also, point 7. It is similar to our code, that is 70%. So it is matching. So we are hopeful that some kind of relaxation would be given in future revisions of the code, looking to this kind of criteria in the other codes, international codes. Presently, we don't have that leverage of having this IGROS, 100% IGROS. But still we can go with some amount of relaxation, like maybe half of the, maybe instead of 0.35, maybe we can go with zero point 0.4 or zero point 0.5. Practical aspects of the PT system: installation in large size PT beam, large span PT beam. You can say here, you can say that span is more huge span, but in this case, when the depth is more, what we do is, we try to keep both the sides open, and we try to keep uh, the installation of the cable with both the sides open, so that we can observe the cable profile properly and make sure that the cables are being laid as per the design requirement. So here you can see that I'll again address that question, earlier question of having the eccentricity. So here this is a large span beam. Now you can see that the eccentricities are somewhere around here. The bottom most part is this. So this is the mid span part, and you can see the eccentricities are well at the bottom part, and again it is raised to, you can see here, to the top part, or you can say middle third part of the top for the stressing part. Now this is a something else. Here this is a large depth beam. Actually this is a girder beam which was resting some floating columns on this beam. So here you can see that the depth is more than the human height, right? And here you can see the cable profile. This is a support here. There is a support below this beam. So this is a support. So cables are at high point, then again a low point, and then again they are at the stressing axis. So here again, same thing are happening here. So this was actually for a hotel project in Baroda, and they wanted to have a column free area at the bottom part of this building, and columns are to be added for the rooms of hotel at the top layer of the top face of the building. So that is why they wanted to have this kind of load transfer mechanism, and this was the girder to take care of that kind of load transfer, the floating column. You can see the stressing end of the same. There are a couple of such beams. I think 4 to 5 beams were there, which was taking care of the floating columns. So you can see here, all the layers are well arranged, and you can see the stress distribution can be minimized as far as possible with this kind of arrangement. Also, there are some cutouts. You can see some cutouts are there. Even in earlier case, you can see some openings are there. Those are being analyzed and permitted based on the design parameters. The same beam, you can see that after casting, after stressing, now after cutting the cable, you can see the cable cut, and it is yet to uh, grout. So this grout is limited to this pocket only. It is the grout is not throughout the length of the cable. It is just to just fill up the pockets. Right? And these pockets hardly is it's around 2 inches depth. That's it. It is just to protect the cable from the ends. We need to fill up with the grout material. So here you can see that the depth of the beam, and you can see the top and bottom face. This is a service floor actually, and you can see the top part and bottom part of the slab. Some interesting cases, unbounded PT systems. You can see the flexibility of the cable. The cables can be, you can see the cables are being laid in a circular fashion. Loop can be done. So this is a highly flexible system. You can accommodate the systems in building use actually. So this is a existing floor, and in existing floor, some modification was to be carried out, and with the help of PT, this kind of modification, added floors are being taken care. You can see that cutout in PT slab. You can see the core cutting in PT slabs. These are the cores. You can see the marking of the cable, and with that marking, this much amount of the cores are being actually taken after construction. You can see the cores. A number of cores are being actually taken after construction. Small cutout of say maybe 2 feet by 2 feet cutout can be easily done like this without harming any cable. Large cutout, say for example, you have a cutout in entire. There is a cutout of entire floor, like maybe around 10 meter by 4 meter. So in that case, you can see that the here the existing slab was there. Now cutout is there. So more than the cutout is being bred, and now after this, the treatment of end zone is given by slab beam, and then the cables are being laid. You can see these are the cables are being laid here. This will be cast. This is the you can say condition of the cable. Now the condition was of the cable after around 1.5 year of this construction. They wanted to have this cutout. So after 1.5 year, more than 1.5 year, we checked the condition of the cable. It's still green, still good, still fresh. Nothing happened to this. No aging process is happened to this material. Even the grease. You can see that this part is cast. So this part is now cast. So this part is here. So this part is cast. Now this is a cutout. You can see now the cutout is a huge cutout, right? And then there was a here additional supporting mechanism need to be generated. So there is a PT beam in existing structure. Here the cutout, and the stressing is carried out here. The beam is again being cast, and the stressing is carried out from the other end like that. So this kind of modifications afterwards is also possible in case of unbounded PT system. Now extending PT beam. Here in this project of Mumbai, we need to extend the cable after construction. So in that case also, we use this kind of coupling device. This is a cable, existing cable, and then extending cable. So cable was up to here only. Now we need to extend. So these are the coupling units, and with the help of these coupling units, you can again extend the cable, and you can maintain the same integrity in the new part of the structure as well. Trimming of PT beam. We came across a site wherein after construction, after maybe around 1.5 year, now they wanted to trim this end. It was here, now it has to be brought to this end because of the some city regulations in Mumbai. So they again approached us, and as you know that this system has more importance on the anchorages, and these are the anchor zones, so we need to be more cautious on that. And we did that job also. This was the existing boundary, and it has brought up to this boundary by trimming the uh, uh, ends of the beam. Demolition of the unbonded PT slab. Here also the terrace part need to be demolished due to city regulations. And as you see that, this is a terrace part, and in terrace part you can see some of the cables are running, and the concrete is demolished. Demolition of entire PT floors. Uh, in Surat, there is a building, a mall building, huge building, and this is the existing structure. And there is a bridge between there is two huge cutout openings. There is a bridge, or you can say pathway, and there are office buildings and mall structure over here. So they have changed their mind, the client, and now they wanted to trim the building from here to here. This entire portion need to be demolished. This to be demolished of the existing PT after around 2 years of the construction. So we identified the breaking cut marks, and then we did the breaking of this. We isolated the part, and then the demolition is carried out. And then the new scheme is being proposed, and the new scheme construction is there. Again, we are there in the new scheme for the certain aspect of the PT requirements in the new scheme also. These are the Google Earth photograph for the same. You can say that terrace floor is partly constructed. It is under construction. This is a portion. This is a bridge. These are two openings like that. So this is the building mall structure, and this is after demolition. You can see that this portion is existing. This portion is entirely demolition, including the bridges and all this thing. Now in this entire part, the client, the developer has started a new scheme, and you can see the new scheme right now. This is the new scheme. So this kind of flexibilities are there. These are the photographs of the demolition of the same project. You can see the bridge part. This is a bridge part. You can see these are the PT beams being disconnected. You can see that here also the disconnection is being carried out. You can see here also the disconnection is being carried out in this portion. Also, we have marked up the status of the cable. Cable is still good condition. Even the grease is also good condition even after more than 2 years of the construction. Even you can see the cables are still good, fresh. Still the grease is there, and its effects is there. So retrofitting and re-strengthening. We came across a PEB building wherein there was a excessive deflection. Let me show you the deflection with the lines. This is one line of the bottom of the beam. This is another line, and actually it should be like this. This is the undeflected line. Zero deflection line is this blue line, whereas the beam has deflected to this much. This is around 125 mm deflection, 5 inches. And after above this, there was a testing laboratory, and they don't want, actually this deflection has come during the erection of or the loading the top floor, means the laboratory part. So after having the laboratory part, they came to know that this has been deflected. So now they don't want to get reverse deflection or straight enough, but they want to maintain this deflection for a long term. They don't want further deflection. So they wanted us to make sure about that and make a provision of that by introducing PT. So these are the cables, external PT cables in steel beam, steel girder. You can see that in a particular, this is a low profile, this is a mid span, this is one support, and this is another support. So this is how external PT also possible. It's well flexible. Unbonded is well flexible to achieve this kind of retrofitting issues also. So now let's have a review over all the kind of rumors actually. You cannot drill or make openings in PT slab. Mostly possible using proper procedure. If you drill into a tendon, it will fly out of the building. It's not the case actually. The tendon cannot fly completely out of the building in any case. It has a sufficient length and it will be inside only. It cannot go outside of the building. It is impossible to upgrade or repair a PT structure. there are ways to upgrade and repair a PT structure with a well-defined methodology. Only thing is we need to make sure about all the things and while working out the methodology. PT structures are not durable, although the PT structures are more durable. As we see, we have a stress control, deflection control, crack control. Also, we have encapsulated PT system, which is proven for the atmospheric actions and corrosion actions. It is expensive than the conventional structure. It is economical in overall scenario. So it is not expensive, but in general, it is an economical solution when we think overall aspects of the building. So thank you all. With this, I think you must have enjoyed this part. I need to go a little bit in hurry because of the time delay. I think we are done with this.
Okay, so as there is no query as I expected, because all the things explained in a very well way with actual site pictures and animated videos. So I thank you, Engineer Arun sir, for this enlightening presentation on post-tensioning. Thank you once again for taking time out from your busy schedule for us. So thank you,
Uh,
sir.
Vijay, I would interrupt. There is a query from the Mr. Arun Chuk. Let me
Yes,
let
yes,
me
sure.
let me respond that. Thanks for your elaborated answers to my previous questions. Thank you, sir. Compared with RCC, what is initial cost saving for flat slab system with unbonded post dressing in percentage more light, please? Okay. Also, any cost comparison with bonded post dressing flat dressing? Okay. Okay. Arunji, we can meet someday and we can discuss this. Actually, this is when we think about the flat slab, this is the cost-effective, very cost-effective solution it will give with the unbonded PTC system, and we can work out on any of your projects and we can compare the cost aspects. So that can be done with. Due course of time. We have a representative in the indoor, so if you can uh, share your number, we can approach you and we can move further for the this kind of studies. And I am sure that this will give you a better option as far as cost comparison is concerned, uh, irrespective of the other aspects. Like we have the other benefits, but if we think of only the cost part, still there will be some advantages in the cost aspect as well. Is a strength profile passing through columns necessary? What are codes recommendation practice followed regarding this? Actually, as per SCI code, they recommend that at least two cables should pass through the column in both the directions. If it is a flat slab or any other geometry, at least two cables should be there. This is a part of integrity. It will actually maintain the integrity of the structure. So to have that integrity part, at least two cables shall be passed through the column. That is the minimum requirement. We can pass more than two cables, there is no issue. If the ample space is there, and as far as the concreting is concerned, if we have a proper spacing between the rebars and proper spacing between the cables, we can put a number of cables in the core of the column too. Hope I have answered the question. Dear, okay, thanks for nice talk. Can you throw some light on design versus execution gap, precautions during executions? Yeah, in design, actually, we try to actually look after the execution part in design itself. We check that whatever the cables are there, there is a impulse space or there is a proper cross section is available to make sure that there should not be any you can say concentration of a cable, or you can say uh, uh, there should not be any thing like concrete doesn't go inside, and uh, very huge concentrated cables are there. So those things are taken care in the design itself. We have a design checks. So based on that, we make sure that this thing doesn't happen on site. But yeah, inside, actually, if we can prepare a nice drawing, nice detailed drawings, uh, which should be easy to understand at site or the on-site persons, I think that solves many of your problems. So if you can detail properly, and if you can deliver them in drawings, the details properly, with fine-tuned detailing and fine-tuned dimensionings, I think most of the jobs are done, and there are very rare chances that the site people will not able to follow them. So that is a key aspect actually I see as a designer.
I I have a small point, Mr.
Yeah,
H.V.
please.
Kaur. Thank you very much for your presentation. This is
Thank
my
you too.
second. I'm hearing you second time, if I'm correct.
Uh-huh. Good, good.
I'm hearing you
So
second
nice
time.
of you.
Uh, the issue is if the designer and executor being the same for PT, you are right. Whereas in the public works projects, we take the design through somebody and tender it out, and X will come as a supplier or the executor. Then there is a gap. Say, suppose you do designs based on some assumed stresses in the tendons and specify the number of tendons.
Right.
Whereas the actual PT supplier has his own tendons and his loss and
Yeah,
uh,
actually, what can be done is we can have a pre-installation visit with the designer as well as with the site executives. So before installation, actually this is what we carry out for the client for first time, the new client or fresh client when it comes to us, the fresh job from the client or contractor, which is doing first time PT. We usually go with the pre-installation visit. So in that case, our person will be there, and he will explain everything. What is the motive of this particular detail? Why we need this kind of details? Everything is being explained to them, and how we can achieve this detail. Those know-hows also being transferred to them before installation, and I think that also will help us in bridging the gap between these two agencies.
okay.
So we always do that. Actually, now in our case, we are the designer as well as we are the supplier as well as we are the uh,
I
yeah, executor. So in that case, many things are already resolved, but still, in case of, because we also work with the third party contractors, wherein reinforcement and shuttering and concreting is concerned, that is not in our scope. So in that case, also we need to address them, and we need to make them uh, uh, you can say make them comfortable with the system we are using. So we always like to have pre-installation site visits. So that also solves many problems.
okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Any other? Okay. So I think I have answered all the questions. If anything remaining, please let me know.
No, sir, I think all the questions covered. Okay, so anyone have any more query?
After completion of pre-stressing on site, if for some reason client want to be ascertain the applied desired jacking force, then how to check at site? Any methods or deflected slab profile gives some indication for verification. Your indoor person, okay. See, after completion of pre-stressing on site, uh, uh, if a client has some issues or some, you can say, if he is not able to receive proper confidence on the structure, the other way to make sure is a load test. We can do a load test on the floor, or you can say a particular panel where it may be a representative of the floor. So a particular panel can be loaded as per as per the load test criteria of the IS 456 in Indian code. So based on that, the loading may be retained to 24 hours. The deflection values to be measured by dial gauge or deflection gauges, and then again the loadings are being removed, and then again the whatever the you can say recovery is to be measured, and then it should be measured that the recovery and the deformations are within the limits of the code. So with that, this can be assured. This is one way of making the assurance of the PT floor or RCC. So that way also, by having the load test, we can make sure we can have confidence on the design as well as the all the materials on that particular floor. There are other methods regarding this to make sure that there is enough strength in force in the cable or not. We need to expose the cable actually, and after exposing the cable, we can actually make a cable to be deviated, or if there are two cables, we can press our maybe our what you can say forceps or something inside the cable, and if the cables are getting splitted out, there is a less force in the cable. If cables doesn't give way, there is a force in the cable, like that. These are all handy mechanisms, and based on the experience, we can make sure that there is a force in the cable. This is all apart from the force measured during the stressing, while the force is applied to the cable through jetting. This is after that. So thank you all, and have a nice day. And we are hopeful to meet you in near future after COVID.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Rana Pathak for the words of thanks. Rana, ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Vijan sir. It's a big privilege to collaborate with the Post Tension Services India Private Limited, and we are really grateful to the PTSI for accepting our invitation and conducting this workshop. I understand that it's very difficult to spare a full day. You all are busy, and Arun sir, you are a teacher. In your introduction, also, I said that the teacher always remains a teacher. So it's really very good to hear you again. I have already attended your lecture, but I really wanted this sharing with the students. And fortunately, we have so many practitioners also. Along with the students, there are very PG students, research scholars. And the good thing is that we have participants pan-India. There are so many participants from South, there are so many participants from North, from different states. So it's a very good vertical, we can say. And thank you very much once again, Arun Sankat sir, for sparing your valuable time. I'm thankful to Urav Patel sir also, the managing director, for accepting our invitation and for conducting this workshop. I'm thankful to Hetuk Shah also. I annoyed him like anything. I was continuously annoying him on WhatsApp for this, that, and all the other tit and bits. So thanks, Hetuk also. I'm thankful to all the participants. It was really a very interacting workshop. Of course, because of the vertical, the students might not be knowing so many things about PT, but yes, for them it's a very good exposure. And for practitioners also, of course, it's an exposure plus a platform where you can share your thoughts and you can ask your questions. And now you know PTSI, you can connect with them. I have the details of Chetan Mahajan, who is the person in Indore, and I can share the details with Chuk sir and the others also. If you want, you just contact me or mail me. I can share the details of the person who is in Indore because I know him. We went with him to Baroda only, and I owe to the hospitality of the people of PTSI. We were very well treated. All the engineers from Indore were very well treated, and that's one of the most memorable visit to Baroda, I can say. And I am thankful to the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Upinder Dhar, for giving us this opportunity of conducting these parallel workshops with the International Congress, because the Congress is for the participants who are presenting papers, but these workshops are one of the opportunity for all the students and different departments to conduct these kind of workshops. And I'm very proud to inform that each and every department is conducting parallel workshops. Today itself, there are 8 to 9 workshops parallelly going on with the International Congress. So it's a very good vision, I will say. So I'm very much thankful to Dr. Rupinder Dhar sir for this broad vision to conduct these kind of parallel workshops along with the Congress. I'm thankful to the director of Sri Vaishnav Institute of Technology and Science, Dr. Namit Gupta, and our head of the department, Dr. Anand Babu sir, for providing all the necessary requirements for conducting this workshop. I'm thankful to the co-coordinator, Professor Vijayant Pandey sir also, for taking all the pains. At least, but not the last, we'll be connected with the PTSI, and we will request all the participants also to be connected with the university. Sri Vaishnav Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya Indore is always conducting these kind of courses, so we'll look forward for your active participation in the future also. And when this COVID is over, we will definitely like to organize a visit for our students. Last year in January, I was in touch with Chetan. By that time, our students were appearing an exam, and then in February, March, after that, all that COVID happened, the lockdown happened, so we could not organize a visit. So we'll definitely look for the projects around Indore, and we will definitely organize some students. And some of the faculties are asking also for the visits, so you can keep in touch with me or even with the Chetan to organize the visits for the students. This will very, very beneficial for the students, of course. So thank you very much, Arun sir, once again. And Anand Babu sir, if you want to give a closure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Arun sir. Thank you very much for such a nice interacting session. And if any sites nearby, any sites are there, sir?
Yes, we presently we are working with Yash Technology in Indore.
Okay.
There is a group called Yash Technology. They are into, I think, IT parks, and they are constructing an office, you can say headquarter, as well as they are having experience center. It has a cow-shaped facade as well as cow-shaped slab. Actually, that is
Okay.
the construction is ongoing. That is all in PT, and I think in this right now it is under progress. But due to COVID, actually, we are not able to get it through for the site visits. So let's hope for the best, and in near future, we'll have projects. We'll like to invite you for the site visits
Sure.
for sure.
So
thank
let
you.
us know if any possibilities for the students to visit or to have internship with you. It will be fantastic collaboration if you would like to give it to us.
We can always discuss, and we can move forward for those kind of things. Surely.
We'll be in touch. Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you all, and have a nice day.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
The feedback link will be available through the email only. So, Mr. Rishabh Yadav, please check your mail. By today evening, you will get the feedback link. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good day.